The rumble of 7 motorcycles cut through the silence of a 2-lane highway in rural Montana. The Iron Wolves MC was returning from a veterans charity run 3 counties over. The men were tired. They had been riding for 4 hours straight. Marcus Steele Brennan rode near the back of the formation. His eyes were always scanning. 20 years on the road had taught him to watch the shoulders, the ditches, the places where things got dumped and forgotten. He saw something. A hard-shell suitcase sat on the gravel shoulder. It was positioned upright as if someone had placed it there with care. Gray with a pink ribbon tied around the handle. This was not garbage thrown from a car window. This was something left to be found. Steele raised his fist. The signal to stop. 7 engines died in sequence. The men dismounted, some stretched, some lit cigarettes, but Steele walked toward the suitcase without speaking. Something in his chest had gone tight. 47 years had taught him to trust the feeling that told him when something was wrong. He crouched beside it. The suitcase was unzipped a few inches at the top. Through the gap, he saw fabric lavender, soft, the kind of fabric used for baby blankets. His hand froze above the zipper. Victor Judge Hammond called out from behind him. "Steele, what you got?" Steele did not answer. He pulled the zipper open. Inside, curled on a nest of blankets and towels, was a sleeping toddler, a little girl. Blonde curls pressed against her cheek, thumb near her mouth. Her chest rose and fell in a slow, peaceful rhythm. She was alive. She was healthy. She had been left here like a package, waiting for pickup. Steele stopped breathing. The other men gathered behind him. Boots scraped on gravel. Someone whispered something low. But no one moved closer. They just stood there staring at the impossible thing in front of them. Judge stepped forward and looked into the suitcase. His face went pale beneath his gray beard. "I don't believe it," he said quietly. The little girl stirred. Her fingers twitched, but she did not wake. Steele's jaw tightened. He had seen a lot of things in his life. He had buried friends. He had held men as they died. But this was different. This was a child left on the side of the road like she meant nothing to anyone. Tucked beside her was a white envelope. "We need to call it in," said a voice behind him. Danny, Wrench, Salinas, the youngest of the group. His voice was shaking. Steele did not move. He was staring at that envelope, thinking about who would do this, thinking about why. Thinking about the kind of person who would leave a baby in a suitcase on a highway where anything could have happened to her. Judge put a hand on his shoulder. Steele. But Steele was somewhere else now. 14 years collapsed into nothing. He saw another face, smaller, pale. His daughter's face the morning he found her in her crib, still and cold, gone without warning or reason. He had not been able to save her. This child was breathing. This child could still be saved. But saved from what? He reached for the envelope. His fingers brushed the paper. It was sealed, handwritten name on the front. Just one word. Grace. Judge leaned in. "What's it say?" Steele looked at the little girl again. She could not have been older than 2. Someone had dressed her in clean clothes. Someone had tucked a blanket around her. Someone had tied a pink ribbon on the handle like this was a gift. But gifts do not get left on the side of the road. He turned the envelope over. His hands were steady, but his heart was not. Whatever words were written inside would decide what happened next. He knew that. He also knew that once he read them, he would not be able to walk away. He slid his finger under the flap and tore it open. The paper inside was folded once. Neat handwriting, blue ink. He began to read, and the first line made his blood run cold. Steele unfolded the letter with steady hands. The paper was thin, lined notebook paper, the kind bought at dollar stores. The handwriting was neat, but rushed. Words had been crossed out and rewritten. This was not a letter someone wrote calmly. This was a letter someone wrote through tears. The men stood in a half circle behind him. No one moved, no one spoke. The only sound was the wind pushing through the dry grass and the soft breathing of the child still curled inside the suitcase. Steele began to read aloud. "Her name is Emma Grace Sullivan. She is 2 years old. My name is Sarah. I am her mother. I am writing this because I have no other choice." He paused. His voice was steady, but his jaw was tight. "I am sick. My heart is failing. I need surgery I cannot afford. I have no insurance. No family. No one to take Emma if I die on the table." Judge closed his eyes. He took a deep, shaky breath. A man trying to hold himself together. Steele kept reading. "I have tried everything. I have begged every agency, every program. No one will help me. Because I am not poor enough to qualify but not stable enough to survive without help. I exist in the gap where the system forgets people." Wrench turned away. His hands were shaking. He was 23 years old, and he had never heard words like this before. Steele's voice dropped lower. "I chose this road because I researched it. I know the Iron Wolves ride this highway on the third Saturday of every month. I know your reputation. I know you protect children. I know that if anyone would find my daughter and do the right thing, it would be men like you." Doc Ramirez crouched beside the suitcase and placed 2 fingers gently against Emma's neck. He checked her breathing. He lifted her eyelids slightly and watched her pupil respond. His face stayed calm, but his movements were careful, protective. "She is stable," he said quietly. "Slightly dehydrated, but healthy. She has been here 2, maybe 3 hours, no more." Steele nodded but did not look up from the letter. He kept reading. "I am asking whoever finds her to love her, protect her, give her the life I cannot provide. I am sorry for my weakness. I am sorry for being a mother who could not do better. Please do not hate me. I did not know what else to do." He stopped. The letter ended there. No return address, no phone number, no last name, nothing that could lead them to her. Steele folded the paper slowly and slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket. His hand stayed there for a moment, pressing the letter flat against his chest. Emma stirred, her small fingers curled and uncurled against the blanket. Her lips parted slightly, and a soft sound escaped. Not a cry, just the sound of a child waking in an unfamiliar place. Judge stepped forward. "We have to call it in." Steele did not respond. "You know the law, brother. We find an abandoned child. We report it. That is how this works." Still, Steele said nothing. He was watching Emma, watching her tiny chest rise and fall, watching her eyelids flutter as she drifted between sleep and waking. Wrench spoke up. His voice cracked slightly. "Any woman desperate enough to leave her baby in a suitcase on a highway is a woman who needs help, not judgment." Doc stood and wiped his hands on his jeans. "He is right. If we call the police now, the child goes into the system. The mother becomes a suspect, and no one asks why she did this. They just punish her for doing it." Judge shook his head slowly. "And if we do not call, if something goes wrong?" Steele finally looked up. His eyes moved from man to man. These were his brothers. They had ridden together for years. They had buried friends together. They had made promises to protect those who could not protect themselves. This was one of those moments. "We find the mother first," Steele said. His voice was low but firm. "We find her before we call anyone." Judge held his gaze. "And if she does not want to be found? Then we give her a reason to be found." No one argued. No one disagreed. They understood what he was saying. If the system got its hands on this baby before they understood the full story, Emma would disappear into foster care. Sarah would disappear into despair. And no one would ever know if this could have ended differently. Steele reached down and carefully lifted Emma from the suitcase. She was lighter than he expected, warm against his chest. Her head rested against his shoulder, and her small hand gripped the edge of his jacket. She did not cry. She just held on. And somewhere out there, a mother was waiting to be saved. The Iron Wolves rolled into Ridge Rest, with Emma wrapped in Doc's jacket. He held her against his chest in a makeshift carrier they had built from a saddlebag strap. The town was small, one main street, a diner, a hardware store, a bank, a gas station, the kind of place where strangers got noticed the moment they arrived. 7 motorcycles rumbling down Main Street turned every head on the sidewalk. Curtains moved in windows. An old man on a bench stopped mid-conversation to watch them pass. This was how small towns worked. Everyone saw everything. Everyone remembered. They stopped at Betty's diner because Judge knew Betty from years of passing through. She was the kind of woman who heard everything and said nothing unless she trusted you. She had served coffee to the Iron Wolves for 15 years. She trusted them. The bell above the door chimed as they entered. The diner fell quiet. 4 booths, a long counter, the smell of bacon grease and fresh coffee. A few locals looked up from their plates, studied the leather cuts, and looked away. They knew better than to stare. Betty came out from behind the counter. She was in her 60 seconds, gray hair pulled back, apron stained from a long morning. Her eyes moved to Doc first, then to the small bundle against his chest. She did not ask questions. "Back booth," she said quietly. "I will bring milk." They followed her to the corner of the diner. The booth was worn but clean. Steele slid in first. Doc sat across from him, adjusting Emma carefully. She was awake now, her blue eyes blinking slowly, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. Betty returned with a small cup of warm milk and a clean cloth. She set them on the table and stood there waiting, her arms crossed, her expression patient but serious. Steele pulled the letter from his jacket. He did not hand it to her. He kept it flat against the table, showing only the first few lines. "We found this baby on the highway," he said. "Her mother left her there. The letter says her name is Sarah. We need to find her." Betty's face changed. It was subtle, but Steele caught it. Recognition, concern. Something else underneath that looked like fear. "Sarah Mitchell?" Betty said slowly. "She's been waiting tables at the truck stop diner for 3 years. Lives in a trailer on the edge of town. Keeps to herself." Judge leaned forward. "You know her well?" Betty shook her head. "Nobody knows Sarah well. She does not let people in. But I've been watching her. The way you watch someone who reminds you of yourself 40 years ago." Steele waited. He could tell there was more. "Something has been wrong," Betty continued. 2 weeks ago, she stopped bringing Emma to work. Before that, she always had her. Set up a little playpen in the back, but then she stopped. Doc looked down at Emma. The little girl was watching Betty with wide, silent eyes. She had not made a sound since they entered the diner. "She's been losing weight," Betty said. "Looking pale, missing shifts. I offered to help her once. She said no. Said she did not need charity." Steele nodded slowly. He understood that kind of pride. It was the kind that came from being let down too many times. Anyone else been paying attention to her? Betty's jaw tightened. Her eyes flicked toward the window, then back to Steele. "Deputy Holt," she said. The name came out flat. Cold. "He has been coming around more often. Always sits in her section. Always watches her too long." Wrench shifted in his seat. "What kind of watching?" "The wrong kind." Betty's voice dropped. "His eyes follow young women like they are something he is owed. His smile never reaches his eyes. I have seen men like him before. They wear badges, but they are not good men." The words hung in the air. No one spoke. Steele felt the tension in the booth thicken. "You think he has something to do with this?" Judge asked. "I do not know," Betty admitted, "but I do not trust him. Never have." Steele folded the letter and put it back in his jacket. "Where would Sarah be now?" "The hospital," Betty said. "County General. She went in 3 days ago. I have not seen her since." Doc stood carefully, keeping Emma secure against his chest. The little girl's fingers curled around the edge of his jacket, holding on tight. She still had not cried, had not fussed, had not made a single sound. Steele noticed. He looked at Doc and Doc looked back. They both understood what that silence meant. This was not normal toddler behavior. This was the behavior of a child who had learned that crying did not bring help. That knowledge settled in Steele's chest like a stone. They moved toward the door. Betty followed them. "Be careful," she said quietly. "This town has eyes, and some of those eyes belong to people who do not want certain things found." Steele nodded once. "We will be back." They stepped outside into the gray morning light. The motorcycles waited at the curb. The street was quiet. Too quiet. Then Steele saw it. A patrol car rolled slowly down Main Street. It moved like it had nowhere to be, like it was just passing through. But the driver was not just passing through. Deputy Raymond Holt sat behind the wheel. His window was down. His arm rested on the door. His eyes moved from the leather cuts to the baby in Doc's arms. And then his expression changed. It was not surprise. It was not curiosity. It was something colder, something calculated. The kind of look a man gave when he saw something he did not expect and needed to figure out how to control it. He did not stop. He did not wave. He just drove past, slow and deliberate, his eyes never leaving them until the patrol car turned the corner and disappeared. Steele watched until the car was gone. "That is him," Wrench said quietly. "Is it not?" Steele did not answer. He did not need to. Every man standing on that sidewalk had seen the same thing. Somewhere in this town, a woman was fighting for her life. And the man who was supposed to protect her was the one she needed protection from. Steele pushed open the trailer door and stepped inside alone. The hinges groaned. The air was stale, but the space was not abandoned. It was organized. Neat. The home of someone who had tried until the very end. The door had been unlocked. That detail stayed with him. People who plan to come back lock their doors. People who have given up do not bother. He stood in the narrow entryway and let his eyes adjust to the dim light. A single window above the sink let in a thin gray glow. The curtains were old but clean. Handmade. Maybe the kind a woman sews when she cannot afford to buy them. The main room held everything. A bed against one wall with a worn quilt smoothed flat. No wrinkles, no mess. Sarah had made her bed before she left, even knowing she might never return. In the corner sat a crib, small, white paint chipped at the edges. Above it hung a mobile of paper stars, each one cut by hand and colored with crayon. Steele reached up and touched one of them. It spun slowly in the still air. He turned toward the shelf beside the crib. Children's books lined up in a row. Library sale stickers on every spine. Goodnight Moon. The Very Hungry Caterpillar. A tattered copy of Pat the Bunny with pages worn soft from small fingers. This was not the home of a woman who did not care. This was the home of a mother who gave everything she had. The refrigerator stood in the tiny kitchen space. Steele opened it. Nearly empty. A jar of baby food. Half a carton of milk past its date. A single apple wrapped in plastic. But on the door, held by a magnet shaped like a sunflower, was a photograph. Sarah and Emma. First birthday. A small cake with one candle. Both of them smiling. Both of them thin. Steele pulled the photo free and studied it. Sarah looked young, mid-20s. Brown hair pulled back. Eyes tired but bright. She was holding Emma against her hip, and the way she looked at her daughter told him everything he needed to know. This was a woman who loved her child more than herself. He slipped the photo into his jacket pocket. On the small kitchen table, he found a stack of papers. Medical bills, collection notices, red stamps that said, "Final warning." He picked through them one by one. 17 rejection letters from government programs. 8 months of being told no. 8 months of doors closing in her face. There was a notebook underneath. He opened it carefully. Sarah had been tracking every dollar, every penny. The margins were full of handwritten calculations. Formula, diapers, rent, electricity, medicine. The numbers ran down the page like a countdown. She had been trying to make the math work, but the math never worked. She had been living in a deficit for over a year, drowning slowly, pretending she could swim. Doc stepped into the trailer behind him. His boots were quiet on the thin floor. He moved to the counter near the sink and stopped. Steele. Doc held up a prescription bottle. White label, nearly empty. Heart medication. Doc said quietly. Last filled 3 months ago. Daily dosage. Steele took the bottle and read the label. 30 pills per refill. 90 days ago. She should have been out of medicine 2 months before she left Emma on that highway. She was rationing, Doc said. Taking half doses, maybe less, trying to stretch what she had. Steele set the bottle down. His chest felt tight. This woman had been dying slowly, and no one had helped her. No one had even noticed. He walked back through the trailer one more time. He looked at the paper stars, the library books, the handmade curtains, the worn quilt. Every corner of this place told the same story. A mother fighting alone, a mother losing. Outside, the others waited by their bikes. Emma was still in Doc's arms, awake now, watching the trees move in the wind. She had not cried once since they found her. Wrench jogged over as Steele came down the steps. Talk to the neighbor, Wrench said. Old woman in the trailer across the road. She saw Sarah leave 3 days ago. Small suitcase. Called a taxi. Did not say where she was going. Steele nodded slowly. 3 days ago Sarah left, but Emma had been placed on that highway this morning. That left a gap, a missing piece. Where was Emma for those 3 days? Steele asked quietly. Wrench shook his head. I do not know. The neighbor said she did not see the baby leave with her. Steele looked back at the trailer. Something was not right. If Sarah left 3 days ago, someone else had Emma. Someone brought her to that highway. Someone placed her in that suitcase and tied the pink ribbon. Who? He stepped off the porch and started toward his bike. Then he stopped. Fresh tire tracks cut through the dirt beside the trailer. They did not belong to any of the motorcycles. The tread was different, wider, a car or truck. The tracks led away from the trailer toward the main road. Steele crouched and studied them. The edges were clean, sharp, made recently. Maybe this morning, maybe last night. Someone had been here before them. Someone who knew about Sarah, someone who knew about Emma, someone who had been watching. He stood slowly and looked down the dirt road toward town. The gray sky pressed low against the trees. The wind had gone still. Whoever made those tracks was still out there, and they knew the bikers were asking questions. The patrol car appeared in Steele's mirror without warning. No sirens at first, just headlights filling the glass. Then the red and blue started flashing. Steele raised his fist. The formation slowed. 7 motorcycles pulled to the shoulder of the road, engines rumbling low. The patrol car stopped 20 feet behind them. The door opened slowly. Deputy Raymond Holt stepped out like a man with nowhere to be, and all the time in the world. He adjusted his belt, walked toward them with the kind of stride that said he owned this road and everyone on it. Steele dismounted and moved to meet him halfway. He kept his hands visible, his face calm. Behind him, the others stayed on their bikes. Doc shifted his position, keeping Emma hidden behind Judge's broad back. Holt stopped 3 feet away. He was taller than Steele expected. Wide shoulders, clean uniform, eyes that moved too slowly, taking in every detail like he was filing it away for later. "Long way from home," Holt said. His voice was smooth, almost friendly. Steele nodded once. "Just passing through." "Passing through?" Holt repeated the words like he was tasting them. "That why you were out at the Mitchell trailer this morning?" Steele did not flinch. "Friend of a friend asked us to check on someone." "That's so?" Holt tilted his head slightly. "And who might that friend be?" "Someone who was worried." Holt smiled. It did not reach his eyes. Lot of worried people in the world. Not all of them send motorcycle clubs to do their checking. Steele said nothing. He let the silence stretch. Holt took a step closer. His voice dropped, but it stayed casual, controlled. "Sarah Mitchell is under investigation. She has made accusations against upstanding members of this community. Serious accusations. The kind that come from someone who is not mentally stable." Steele watched his face, watched the way his jaw tightened when he said her name. "Whatever she has told people," Holt continued, "whatever story she has spread, they should be considered unreliable. She is not well. She needs help. Professional help. We are not here to cause trouble," Steele said evenly. "Good." Holt's smile returned. "Because Ridgerest takes care of its own. We do not take kindly to outsiders interfering in local matters." He paused. Let the words settle. People who stick their noses where they do not belong tend to regret it. Steele held his gaze. He had met men like Holt before. Men who wore badges like shields. Men who believed authority made them untouchable. Men who had never been touched by someone who did not care about their badge. "Appreciate the advice," Steele said quietly. Holt studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly, turned, and walked back to his patrol car. He did not look back. He did not need to. The message had been delivered. The patrol car pulled away and disappeared down the road. Steele walked back to the others. His boots crunched on the gravel. His jaw was tight. "What was that about?" Wrench asked. "Warning shot." Steele looked at each of them. "He knows we are asking questions. He does not want us finding answers." Judge shifted on his bike. "You think he is part of whatever Sarah was running from?" "I think he is the reason she ran." Doc adjusted Emma against his chest. She was quiet, too quiet. Her eyes were open, watching the road where the patrol car had been. Steele noticed. He noticed everything about that child now. "We need to get to the hospital," he said, "but we need to be smart about it. If Holt is dirty, he has people watching. We split up." Judge nodded. "Half to the hospital, half stays in town, digs for information. Find out who Holt is connected to. Find out what Sarah accused him of. Find out why the whole town seemed scared to say his name." The men exchanged looks. They understood. This was not just a rescue mission anymore. This was something deeper, something darker. Steele climbed back on his bike. Doc moved to ride beside him. Emma was still hidden in the makeshift carrier, her small body warm against Doc's chest. "What if she is already gone?" Doc asked quietly. Steele started his engine. "Then we find out where she went." They rode toward the hospital. The road was empty. The sky pressed low and gray above them. Every shadow felt like it had eyes. At the hospital, Steele parked near the emergency entrance. Doc stayed with the bike, keeping Emma out of sight. Steele went inside alone. The reception desk was manned by a young woman with tired eyes. She looked up as he approached. "I am looking for a patient," Steele said. "Sarah Mitchell, admitted 4 days ago." The woman typed the name into her computer. Her fingers paused, her expression changed. "She was here," the woman said slowly. "Admitted for cardiac evaluation." Was she discharged? Discharged herself against medical advice 36 hours ago. Steele leaned on the counter. Did she say where she was going? The woman shook her head. She did not say anything, just signed the papers and left. One of the nurses tried to stop her. Said she was not stable enough to be on her own, but she would not listen. Steele straightened. 36 hours. That was a day and a half. Plenty of time to disappear. Plenty of time to get caught. Did anyone come to see her while she was here? The woman hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the hallway behind her. There was a deputy, she said quietly. Came by twice. Sat with her for a while. She seemed upset after he left. Steele felt the cold settle in his chest. Sarah was out there, somewhere, hiding, running, maybe already in his hands, and time was running out. Steele found Dr. Angela Park in the corridor outside the cardiac unit. She was reviewing a chart, her back straight, her expression focused. She looked up when he approached and immediately took a step back. He understood. A man in a leather cut walking through a hospital hallway was not a common sight. He kept his voice low, calm. I need to talk to you about a patient, Sarah Mitchell. Dr. Park's expression tightened. I cannot discuss patients with strangers. I know. Steele reached into his jacket and pulled out the letter. He held it so she could see the handwriting. Her daughter was left on the side of a highway this morning. We found her. We are trying to find the mother. Dr. Park did not take the letter, but she read the first few lines. Her face changed. The professional mask slipped just slightly. Where is the child now? Steele nodded toward the waiting area visible through the glass doors at the end of the hall. Doc sat in a plastic chair with Emma in his lap. Someone from the gift shop had given them a small stuffed bear. Emma held it against her chest, her eyes wide and watchful. Dr. Park stared at the little girl for a long moment. Then she looked back at Steele. Follow me. She led him to a small consultation room and closed the door. The space was plain, 2 chairs, a desk, a box of tissues. I remember her, Dr. Park said quietly. She came in 4 days ago. Chest pain, shortness of breath. She knew something was wrong, but she waited too long to come in. Steele waited. He let her talk. Congenital heart defect. It has been worsening for over a year. Without surgery, she has weeks. Maybe a few months if she is lucky. Can she get the surgery? Dr. Park shook her head slowly. The procedure costs more than she will earn in 5 years. No insurance, no savings. I checked every program I know. There are no charity options in Montana for her specific condition. The waiting lists for out-of-state programs are 18 months long. Steele absorbed that. 18 months. Sarah did not have 18 months. She cried, Dr. Park said, her voice softened. When she thought no one was watching, she cried. She asked me 3 times if there was any way to get the surgery without money, without selling everything. I did not have an answer for her. Steele thought about the trailer, the budget notebook, the ration medicine. Sarah had been fighting alone for a long time. Why did she leave the hospital? She discharged herself against medical advice. Said she had something she needed to do first. Dr. Park paused. She looked like someone who had made peace with something terrible. Steele felt the weight of those words settle in his chest. Sarah had made a plan. She had decided to save her daughter because she could not save herself. Has anyone else been asking about her? Dr. Park hesitated. Her fingers tapped lightly against her knee. Yesterday, a deputy came by, showed his badge, asked about Sarah's mental state. Her visitors, her next of kin. She looked at Steele directly. He took notes. He did not explain why. Holt. I did not catch his name, but he was tall, clean uniform, smiled a lot. Steele nodded slowly. Holt was tracking Sarah through official channels, using his badge to open doors that should stay closed. Is there anything else you can tell me? Anything that might help us find her? Dr. Park thought for a moment. Before she left, she made a phone call from the lobby. She asked the front desk to use their phone. Do you know who she called? No? But Gloria might. She was working the desk that day. Steele stood. Thank you. Dr. Park stayed seated. Her eyes followed him to the door. Find her, she said quietly. Whatever she did, whatever choice she made, she does not deserve to die alone. Steele nodded once and left. He found Gloria at the front desk. She was in her 60 seconds with reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She looked up when he approached. I'm looking for information about a patient who was here a few days ago. Sarah Mitchell. I was told she made a phone call from this desk. Gloria's expression shifted. Recognition. Sadness. I remember her. Sweet girl. Thin. Looked like she had not slept in days. Gloria shook her head slowly. She was crying when she asked to use the phone, trying to hide it, but I could tell. Do you remember the number she called? I do. Gloria lowered her voice. It was a local number. I recognized it because my husband volunteers there. She called Liberty Hall, the old community center. Steele felt something unlock in his chest. A lead. A real lead. She called Mr. Michael? She did. He's been running that place since he retired from the school board. Thank you. He walked back to the waiting area. Doc looked up as he approached. Emma was asleep now, her head resting against Doc's shoulder, the stuffed bear tucked under her arm. What did you find? Doc asked quietly. She called the community center before she disappeared. Mr. Michael. Doc stood carefully, keeping Emma steady. You think he knows where she is? Steele looked toward the hospital exit. Outside, the gray sky was darkening. Time was moving. Holt was moving. If he does, we need to get there first. They walked out of the hospital together. Somewhere in Ridgerest, Sarah was hiding, running, waiting for someone to find her. Steele just hoped they would reach her before the man with the badge did. Liberty Hall stood at the edge of Ridgerest, a sturdy brick building that used to be a town library before it became a community center. The steps were worn smooth from decades of footsteps, but the doors were solid oak, and the windows still held their glass. The Iron Wolves parked in the gravel lot and cut their engines. The silence that followed felt heavy. Steele dismounted first. Doc followed with Emma still sleeping against his chest. The others stayed with the bikes, watching the road, watching the shadows. The front door opened before they reached it. Mr. Michael stood in the doorway. He was in his 60s, thin with white hair and eyes that held the sharp intelligence of a man who had spent his life teaching. He wore a simple button-down shirt. His hands were steady, but his face carried the weariness of a man who had been waiting. He did not look surprised to see them. He looked relieved. Come inside, he said quietly. Quickly, he led them through the main hall, past rows of folding chairs and notice boards covered in flyers. He moved with purpose, staying away from windows, away from the doors that faced the road. In a small office at the back of the building, he stopped and turned to face them. You found Emma, he said. It was not a question. Steele nodded. She is safe. Mr. Michael closed his eyes for a moment. He took a long breath. Sarah is here, he said. She has been in the basement storage room for 2 days. She came to me after she left the hospital. Doc stepped forward. Is she all right? No, Mr. Michael shook his head slowly. She is very weak. She has not eaten properly. She has been crying since she left her daughter on that road. Steele felt the weight of those words. A mother who gave up her child to save her. A mother hiding in a basement waiting to die. Why did she come here? Steele asked. Mr. Michael looked at him directly. Because this is the only place in Ridgerest where he cannot follow without a warrant. Holt. The old man nodded. She told me everything. All of it. He sat down heavily in a worn chair behind his desk, his hands folded in his lap. He looked like a man about to reveal a secret that had been burning inside him for too long. Deputy Holt has been running an operation for over a decade. He targets vulnerable mothers, women without family, without resources, women who will not be believed. Steele listened, his jaw tightened. He pressures them to sign over custody voluntarily, threatens to have their children taken by social services if they refuse. He has connections everywhere: family court, child protective services, county records. The babies go to couples who pay in cash. The paperwork disappears. Mr. Michael paused. His voice dropped lower. The mothers disappear too, one way or another. Doc made a sound low in his throat. Wrench, standing near the door, turned away. His hands were shaking. Sarah found out what he was doing 2 months ago. Mr. Michael continued. He approached her, offered to help find Emma a better home, showed her photographs of wealthy families, promised her daughter would be loved. She refused, Steele said. She refused, and his tone changed. The old man described what came next. The following, the threats, the promise that no one would believe a broke, sick, single mother over a 23-year veteran of the sheriff's department. Sarah had tried to fight back. She recorded conversations on her phone, collected documents from the hospital showing irregularities in birth records, built a case against him piece by piece. Then her heart gave out. When she woke up in the hospital, her phone was gone. All of it, everything she had gathered. Steele understood. Holt had been watching. Holt had been waiting. The moment she was vulnerable, he moved. She knew the evidence was gone. Mr. Michael said. She knew he would never stop. She knew she was dying. So she made the only choice she could. Leave Emma where someone would find her. Hide in the one place Holt could not enter without causing a public scandal, the community center. Mr. Michael stood slowly. He walked to a door at the back of the office. A narrow staircase led down into darkness. She is down there, he said. She is very weak. Please be gentle. Steele looked at Doc. Doc nodded once and adjusted Emma in his arms. The little girl stirred but did not wake. Steele turned toward the stairs. The wooden steps creaked under his boots. The air grew cooler as he descended. A single lamp glowed at the bottom, casting long shadows across the concrete walls. The basement was small. A cot against one wall, a blanket, a glass of water on a wooden crate. Sarah Mitchell sat on the cot with her arms wrapped around her knees. She was thin, so thin. Her brown hair hung limp around her face. Her skin was pale, almost gray. She looked like someone who had already started to leave. Steele stopped at the bottom of the stairs. He did not move closer. He did not want to frighten her. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the photograph from her refrigerator. Sarah and Emma. First birthday. Both of them smiling. He held it where she could see. Sarah looked up. Her eyes were red and hollow. But when she saw the photograph, something sparked, something alive. She did not scream. She did not run. She whispered 2 words. Is she safe? And in those 2 words was every hope she had left in the world. Doc descended the stairs slowly, each step careful and quiet. Emma was awake in his arms, her blue eyes wide, taking in the dim basement and the shadows. Sarah looked up from the cot. Her face was pale, her eyes were hollow. But when she saw the small figure in Doc's arms, everything changed. Emma saw her mother at the same moment. The little girl reached out with both arms. Her fingers stretched towards Sarah. And then she spoke the first word she had said since the bikers found her on that highway. Mama. Sarah made a sound that was not quite a word. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere broken. She pushed herself off the cot and stumbled forward, her legs barely holding her weight. Doc knelt down and let Emma go. The toddler ran the last few steps and crashed into her mother's arms. Sarah caught her and pulled her close, her whole body folding around her daughter like she could protect her from everything in the world just by holding tight enough. The sobbing started then, deep, ragged sounds that echoed off the basement walls. Sarah buried her face in Emma's hair and cried in a way that sounded like something inside her was breaking apart and coming back together at the same time. The bikers turned away. Steele faced the wall. Doc studied the floor. They gave her what privacy they could without leaving her unprotected. Minutes passed. The crying slowed. Emma's small voice murmured soft sounds against her mother's neck. Comfort sounds. The language children speak before they have words. Steele waited until the silence settled before he spoke. She is healthy, he said quietly. We had a doctor look at her. She is dehydrated, but she is okay. Sarah lifted her head. Her cheeks were wet. Her eyes were red. But she was listening. We read the letter, Steele continued. We know why you did what you did. We are not here to judge you. We are not here to take her away. Sarah's arms tightened around Emma. Then why are you here? To help? She stared at him for a long moment. Her expression shifted through something complicated. Disbelief, hope, fear, and then something darker. I do not deserve help, she whispered. Steele did not respond. He let her speak. I left my baby on the side of a highway. I closed that suitcase and walked away. I left her there alone. Her voice cracked. No matter what happens next, I will never forgive myself for that. Steele moved closer. He lowered himself onto the wooden crate that served as a table and sat across from her. His movements were slow, deliberate. The way you move around something wounded. I had a daughter, he said. Sarah looked at him. Something in his voice had changed. She was 14 when she died. Drunk driver. Nothing I could have done. Nothing anyone could have done. But I spent years wondering anyway. Wondering if I had picked her up 5 minutes earlier. Wondering if I had taken a different road. He paused. His jaw tightened. Guilt is not useful if it stops you from doing what needs to be done next. Sarah held his gaze. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. What needs to be done next? She asked. You have information about Holt? What he has been doing? Who he is working with? We have resources, connections. Together, we can build a case that even a corrupt system cannot ignore. Sarah shook her head slowly. They took my phone, all the recordings, All the evidence. Then we find new evidence. We build it again. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe, somewhere with doctors. Doc stepped forward. He had been watching Sarah since he came down the stairs, watching her color, watching her breathing. He knelt beside her and placed 2 fingers against her wrist. Your pulse is weak, he said quietly. Your lips are turning blue at the edges. You need a hospital today, not tomorrow. Sarah looked down at Emma. The little girl had fallen asleep against her chest, exhausted from crying, exhausted from fear. If I go to the hospital, he will know. He is watching. We know, Steele said. We will figure it out. Footsteps echoed from above. Heavy. Urgent. Judge appeared at the top of the stairs, his face grim. We have a problem. Steele stood. What did you find? Holt is not working alone. At least 2 other deputies are in his pocket. Plus a social worker, a clerk in the county court. Judge shook his head. This is not one dirty cop. This is a network. The weight of those words settled in the basement like smoke. Doc looked at Steele. We cannot take this to the local sheriff. We do not know whose side he is on. State police means delays, Wrench said from the doorway. Federal means weeks of paperwork. Steele looked at Sarah, at Emma, at the woman who was dying, and the child who needed her mother. We go to the sheriff directly. We present everything we know. We make him choose a side. He paused. But we do not go alone. We go with witnesses, cameras, enough noise that covering this up becomes impossible. Mr. Michael appeared at the top of the stairs. His face was white. There is no time for planning, he said. His voice was tight with fear. Steele moved toward the stairs. What is it? A patrol car just parked outside. Mr. Michael swallowed hard. Deputy Holt is walking toward the front door, and he is not alone. Steele moved up the stairs 2 at a time. Behind him, Doc helped Sarah to her feet while Wrench gathered Emma into his arms. The little girl did not cry. She pressed her face against his shoulder and went still. In the main hall, the other bikers were already in position. Judge stood near the front window, visible but not threatening. 2 others flanked the main door. Their hands were empty, their postures were calm. This was deliberate. If Holt wanted a fight, he would not get one he could justify. Mr. Michael reached the front door first. He straightened his shirt, took a breath, and opened it before Holt could knock. Deputy Holt stood on the steps with another officer behind him. His uniform was pressed. His badge caught the gray light. His smile was the same one Steele had seen on the highway. Polite, empty. Mr. Michael, Holt said smoothly. I need to come inside. On what grounds? I have a warrant. Mr. Michael extended his hand. May I see it? Holt did not reach for his pocket. His smile flickered. It is being processed. Should be here any minute. Then you can wait outside until it arrives. Holt's jaw tightened. The politeness was slipping. Mr. Michael, I am acting on urgent information. A mentally unstable woman has taken refuge here with a child she endangered. If you do not cooperate, I will have no choice but to charge you with obstruction. Mr. Michael did not move. His voice stayed level. This is a community center, a designated safe zone. No one enters without a valid warrant signed by a judge. You are making a mistake, perhaps, but I will personally call every news station in Montana if you attempt to force entry into this building. Holt's eyes moved past the old man, scanning the hall. He saw the bikers standing at the windows. He saw their empty hands. He saw they were not going to give him what he needed. Steele watched from behind a stack of chairs. He kept his breathing slow, his hands relaxed at his sides. Every instinct told him to step forward, to put himself between Holt and the basement stairs. But that would give Holt exactly what he wanted. A reason. I know she is here, Holt said. His voice dropped lower. I know about the letter. I know the baby is with you. Mr. Michael did not react, but Steele caught the shift. The letter. Holt mentioned the letter. He should not know about that if this were a standard welfare check. Wrench had moved to the side window. His phone was in his hand, angled carefully, recording, capturing every word that came out of Holt's mouth. The child's name is Emma, Holt continued. Her mother is sick, unstable. She abandoned that baby on a highway. I'm trying to help. Steele's chest tightened. Emma by name. How did he know that? If Sarah's accusations were lies, if she was truly mentally unstable, why would Holt know details that only someone close to the case would know? Because he was close to the case. Because he was the case. The standoff stretched. Minutes passed. Holt made threats. Mr. Michael quoted civic codes. The bikers stayed silent, visible, unmoving, witnesses to everything. Steele counted the time in heartbeats. 23 minutes. That was how long they stood there. 23 minutes of Holt, trying to find a crack he could exploit. Then another car pulled into the gravel lot. Steele recognized the markings before the door opened. Sheriff's department, but not a patrol car, an unmarked sedan. Sheriff Thomas Greer stepped out. He was older than Holt. Gray hair cropped short, deep lines around his eyes. He moved with the slow confidence of a man who had worn a badge for 30 years. He approached the steps and stopped beside Holt. His eyes moved from the deputy to the old man to the bikers watching from inside. What is happening here? Holt straightened. His professional mask snapped back into place. Welfare check, Sheriff. We have reason to believe a woman and child in danger are inside this building. Mr. Michael is refusing to cooperate. Greer looked at the old man. That true? Mr. Michael nodded. I asked to see a warrant. He does not have one. Greer turned back to Holt. His expression was unreadable. Do you have a warrant? It is being processed. Then you should not be here. Holt's mask slipped. Just for a second. Steele saw the flash of something underneath. Anger. Calculation. The look of a man who was not used to being told no. Sheriff, the situation is urgent. The mother is mentally unstable. The child could be in danger. Greer held up a hand. Stand down, Raymond. I will handle this personally. Sir, I really think. I said stand down. Go back to the station. File a formal report if you believe there is cause for action. The silence that followed was heavy. Holt stared at Greer. Greer stared back. Something passed between them that Steele could not read. Then Holt turned and walked back to his patrol car. His steps were slow, controlled, but his hands were tight at his sides. Before he got in the car, he looked back. His eyes found Steele through the window. The look was clear. This is not over. The patrol car pulled away. Dust rose behind it and settled slowly. Greer turned to Mr. Michael. His voice was quieter now, less official. I need to speak with whoever is inside. I need to understand what is happening before someone gets hurt. Mr. Michael glanced back at Steele. Their eyes met. Steele stepped forward. Everything depended on the next 10 minutes. On whether Greer was honest or blind or something worse. On whether the truth would be enough. He pushed open the main door and walked out to meet the sheriff. You the one in charge of this group? Greer asked. I am. Then I need you to explain what is happening here. Start from the beginning. Steele did not hesitate. Come inside. There is someone you need to hear. Greer followed him into the main hall. The other bikers stayed at their positions, watching through windows, guarding doors. This was not over yet. Holt could come back. Holt could send others. Mr. Michael waited near the center of the room. He gestured toward a chair in the front row. Please, Sheriff, sit. This will take some time. Greer lowered himself onto the chair. His back stayed straight. His expression stayed neutral. This was a man who had learned to listen before he judged. The basement door opened. Sarah emerged slowly, leaning on Doc for support. Her face was pale. Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes were clear. She carried Emma in her arms. The little girl was awake, watching everything with the silent attention of a child who had learned to be invisible. Sarah sat in the chair across from Greer. She looked at him directly. My name is Sarah Mitchell, she said. I need to tell you about Deputy Holt. Her voice was weak, but steady. She started from the beginning. The first time Holt approached her at the truck stop diner. The photographs of wealthy families he showed her. The promises he made about finding Emma a better home. Greer listened. He did not interrupt. Sarah continued. She described how Holt's tone changed when she refused. The following. The threats. The warning that no one would believe a broke, sick, single mother over a veteran deputy. She told him about the recordings she made, the conversations she captured on her phone, the documents she gathered from the hospital showing irregularities in birth records. I had evidence, she said. Enough to prove what he was doing. But when I collapsed, when they took me to the hospital, someone took my phone. When I woke up, it was gone. Greer's jaw tightened just slightly, but Steele caught it. Sarah's voice cracked. I did not know what else to do. I knew I was dying. I knew he would never stop. So I left Emma where people I trusted would find her, and I came here. Silence filled the hall. Emma shifted in her mother's arms, her small hand gripping Sarah's shirt. Steele stepped forward. We have been asking questions since we found Emma this morning. What we have learned matches everything she is saying. He laid out what the bikers had discovered. The pattern of vulnerable mothers in Ridge Rest who gave up children voluntarily. The connections between Holt and officials in family court, Child Protective Services, and the county records office. The network that made paperwork disappear and babies vanish. Mr. Michael spoke next. His voice was heavy with years of silence. I have seen this pattern for a long time. Sheriff, mothers who came to me afraid. Children who disappeared from this community without explanation. I suspected, but I could never prove anything. I failed these women. I will not fail this one. Greer sat very still. His hands were folded in his lap. His eyes moved from Sarah to Steele to Mr. Michael. The silence stretched. Then he spoke. I have had suspicions about Raymond Holt for years. Steele felt something shift in the room. Attention sharpened. I ignored them, Greer continued. Investigating your own department is difficult, dangerous. People do not want to believe. The man who protects them is the same man they need protection from. He looked at Sarah. I failed you. I failed every woman he hurt. That ends today. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She held Emma tighter. But I need more than testimony, Greer said. I need evidence. Physical evidence, recordings, documents, something that can survive a courtroom. Something a defense attorney cannot explain away. Sarah shook her head slowly. The evidence is gone. He took it. Greer's face fell. The hope that had flickered went dark. Steele turned to face the sheriff. If we could get the evidence back, would you act on it? Greer met his eyes. What do you mean? Holt has her phone. The phone has the recordings. If we can recover it, would you arrest him? Your own deputy? The question hung in the air. Heavy, dangerous. Greer did not look away. If you bring me proof, I will personally put him in handcuffs. Steele nodded. He turned to the other bikers. This was where things got complicated. This was where the plan became dangerous. Wrench stepped forward from the back of the hall. He had been quiet through the entire meeting, watching, thinking. I know where he keeps things, Wrench said. Everyone turned to look at him. Personal items from his cases. He has a storage unit outside town. I followed him there 2 hours ago. Steele stared at him. You followed Holt? Wrench shrugged. You said dig for information. I dug. The room went quiet. Outside, the gray sky was darkening toward evening. Time was running out. Holt was out there somewhere, planning his next move. But now they had something they did not have before. They had a target. The motorcycles split into two groups at the edge of town. Steele raised his fist, signaled left, and peeled away with 4 riders behind him. Wrench went right with 2 others, heading toward the storage facility on the outskirts of Ridgerest. The plan was simple. Simple plans had fewer ways to fail. Steele's group would ride through the center of town, loud, visible, impossible to ignore. They would draw every eye in Ridgerest, including the eyes that mattered most. Wrench's group would do the real work. The storage facility sat on a dirt road 3 miles past the last gas station. A chain-link fence surrounded rows of metal units. No security cameras, no attendant on duty after 5, just a padlock on the gate and cheap combination locks on the doors. Wrench cut his engine 50 yards from the entrance. The other 2 riders did the same. They walked the rest of the way, boots crunching on gravel, eyes scanning the empty road behind them. The gate lock gave way in seconds. Wrench had learned things in his 23 years that did not appear on any resume. They moved down the row of units until they found the one Wrench had watched Holt enter that afternoon. Unit 17, orange door, rust along the bottom edge. The combination lock was standard, the kind sold at hardware stores for $12. Wrench worked it open in under a minute. The door rolled up with a metallic groan. Inside, the unit was packed with boxes, cardboard, plastic bins, filing containers stacked 3 high along the walls. This was not a storage unit for furniture or holiday decorations. This was an archive. Wrench pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam swept across the contents. The first box he opened held phones, a dozen of them, different models, different ages, some with cracked screens, some still in cases decorated with stickers and charms. Each one tagged with a small piece of masking tape, initials and dates written in neat handwriting. His stomach turned. The second box held wallets, women's wallets, some with driver's licenses still inside, photos of children tucked into plastic sleeves, credit cards that had been canceled years ago. The third box was worse. Children's items. A stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. A small shoe. A pacifier still in its package. Never opened. Wrench stepped back. His hands were shaking. This was not just evidence of Sarah's case. This was evidence of dozens of cases. Years of cases. Women and children who had been erased from the system while a man with a badge smiled and collected his payments. One of the other riders, a man named Cole, whispered from the doorway, "We need to move. Clock is ticking." Wrench nodded. He pulled himself together. They had a job to do. He photographed everything, every box, every item, every piece of tape with its damning initials and dates. The phone's camera clicked again and again, documenting the scope of what Holt had built. Then he found what they came for. Sarah's phone sat in a plastic bag on a metal shelf near the back. Her name was written on the bag in black marker like she was already gone, like she was already just another file in Holt's collection. Wrench took the phone. He left everything else exactly where it was. When the authorities came, when the warrants were signed, the scene needed to be intact, untouched, undeniable. 14 minutes. That was how long the entire operation took. They locked the unit, locked the gate, walked back to their bikes, and rode away without looking back. 3 miles away, Steele's group was finishing their circuit through town. They had ridden down Main Street twice. Past the diner, past the hardware store, past the sheriff's station. Loud pipes echoing off brick buildings, impossible to miss, and Holt had not missed them. His patrol car appeared behind them within minutes. He stayed 2 car lengths back, never closer, never pulling them over, just watching, following, making sure he knew exactly where they were. Steele let him follow. That was the point. By the time Steele's group returned to the community center, Wrench was already there. He stood on the steps, Sarah's phone in his hand, a look on his face that said he had seen things he would not forget. Inside, Sarah sat in the back room with Emma asleep in her lap. Doc stood beside her, monitoring her pulse, watching her breathing. She was getting worse. Wrench handed her the phone. Sarah stared at it for a long moment. Her hands trembled as she pressed the power button. The screen lit up. The lock screen appeared. A photo of Emma on her first birthday. She entered her passcode. The recordings were there. Every conversation, every threat, every promise Holt had made. Still there, untouched. Holt had been so confident, so certain that no one would challenge him. He had not even bothered to delete the evidence. Doc connected the phone to a laptop and began creating copies. One file went to a flash drive for Sheriff Greer. Another went to a state police contact, Judge knew from his years in the military. A third went to a journalist who had been investigating corruption in rural Montana counties for years. The net was cast. Multiple copies, multiple destinations, too many threads for anyone to cut. All that remained was to pull it closed. Steele was organizing the handoff when his phone buzzed. "A local number," he answered. Dr. Park's voice was tight with urgency. "Is Sarah still with you?" "She is. Her latest blood work came back. The results are worse than I thought." Dr. Park paused. Steele heard her. "Take a breath. Her heart is failing faster than we expected. She needs emergency surgery within the next 12 hours. Steele looked toward the back room. Sarah was holding Emma, stroking her daughter's hair, unaware that time was slipping away. "If she does not get that surgery," Dr. Park continued, "she will not survive to see tomorrow." The ambulance doors slammed shut with Sarah inside. Doc climbed in after her. Emma pressed against his chest. The little girl's eyes were wide, watching her mother on the stretcher, watching the paramedics attach monitors and adjust tubes. Sarah reached out with trembling fingers. Emma grabbed them and held on. The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing, sirens cutting through the evening air. Steele kicked his motorcycle to life. Judge did the same beside him. They fell in behind the ambulance, staying close, refusing to let Sarah out of their sight. The others went a different direction. Wrench led them toward the sheriff's station. The flash drive with the evidence secured in his jacket pocket. 2 battles, 2 fronts. No room for failure on either one. At the station, Sheriff Greer met them at the door. His face was drawn, tired, but his eyes were sharp. Wrench handed him the flash drive without a word. Greer plugged it into his computer. The recordings began to play. Holt's voice filled the small office. Smooth, confident, threatening a young mother with words that sounded helpful but carried poison underneath. Greer listened to 3 recordings. His jaw tightened with each one. "That is enough," he said quietly. He picked up his phone and made 2 calls. The first was to the county judge. The second was to the state police. Within an hour, an arrest warrant was signed. Within 2 hours, state troopers were on their way to Ridgecrest. At the hospital, Steele and Judge waited in the emergency room while Sarah was rushed into evaluation. Doc stayed with Emma in the waiting area. The little girl finally asleep against his shoulder. Dr. Park found Steele 20 minutes later. Her face carried the weight of what she had to say. She needs surgery tonight. Her heart cannot wait any longer. Steele nodded. He had known this was coming. The procedure costs more than she has, more than most people have. Doctor, Park paused. Her insurance will not cover it. Pre-existing condition clauses. Policy limitations. The system was not built to help people like her. Steele felt the words land like stones in his chest. Without the surgery, she has hours, maybe less. Doctor. Park looked toward the room where Sarah lay. And her daughter becomes exactly what that man wanted. A child without a mother. Vulnerable, available. Steele turned away. He walked to the window and stared out at the parking lot. His bike sat under a streetlight. His brothers were scattered across the county, fighting a battle he could not help with from here. He pulled out his phone. He called every charter of the Iron Wolves, within 500 miles. He explained the situation in simple terms: a mother, a child, a corrupt deputy who stole children from women too weak to fight back. A surgery that could save a life if enough people cared enough to help. He asked for donations. He gave the hospital's information. He said whatever people could spare, anything at all, would make a difference. Then he hung up and waited. The first transfer came through 43 minutes later. A mechanic in Billings, $300. A message attached that said, only for the little one. The second came 12 minutes after that. A bartender in Helena, $250. Then the floodgates opened. Wire transfers arrived from mechanics and nurses, from construction workers and teachers, from bar owners and factory workers, from people who rode motorcycles, and people who had never touched one but knew someone who did. The community responded the way it always responded when a child was in danger, with overwhelming generosity. Across town, state troopers located Deputy Raymond Holt at a motel 6 miles outside the county line. He was packing a bag when they knocked on the door. He tried to smile. He tried to explain. He tried to use the voice that had worked for 23 years. It did not work anymore. They put him in handcuffs and read him his rights. The charges were long. The list of victims was longer. He would not see the outside of a prison for the rest of his life. Back at the hospital, the surgery fund reached 60% by the time Holt was apprehended. It reached 90% by the time he was formally booked. It exceeded the goal by the time Sarah was wheeled into the operating room. Strangers had saved her life. People who would never meet her. People who only knew that a mother needed help and a child needed her mother. The surgery took 4 hours. The bikers waited in the hospital waiting room. They took shifts watching over Emma, who slept peacefully in Judge's arms without knowing what was happening in the operating room above her. Steele sat in a chair near the back. His hands were folded. His head was bowed. He was not a religious man, but he found himself hoping anyway. The doors opened. Dr. Park walked in. Her surgical cap was still on her head. Her scrubs were wrinkled. Her expression was impossible to read. She walked toward Steele. Each step felt like it took an hour. He stood. His heart was pounding. Doctor. Park stopped in front of him. She looked at his face for a long moment and still did not know if he was about to witness a miracle or another funeral. Dr. Park's face softened. The tension in her shoulders released. She took a breath before she spoke. She made it. Steele felt the words hit him somewhere deep. His knees wanted to buckle. His eyes wanted to close. He stayed standing through sheer will. The surgery was successful, Dr. Park continued. She will need months of recovery, physical therapy, follow-up procedures, but her heart is beating strong. Steele nodded slowly. He did not trust his voice. She is going to live, Dr. Park said. She is going to see her daughter grow up. Behind him, Judge let out a breath he had been holding for 4 hours. Doc lowered his head and pressed his palm against his eyes. Wrench turned away toward the window, his shoulders shaking silently. Emma was still asleep in Judge's arms, unaware that the world had just shifted back towards something hopeful. Steele looked at Dr. Park. When can we see her? She will be in recovery for a few hours. After that, family only. Dr. Park paused. She looked at the men standing in the waiting room. leather cuts and road dust and exhaustion written across every face. I think we can make an exception. 3 hours later, Sarah opened her eyes. The hospital room was quiet. Soft light filtered through the blinds. Machines beeped in steady rhythm, and sitting on the edge of her bed, holding a stuffed bear with a crooked bow, was Emma. Sarah's hand reached out before she was fully awake. Her fingers found her daughter's hair. Soft, real, still here. Emma looked up. Her blue eyes were bright. Alive. "Mama," she whispered. "You waked up." Sarah pulled her daughter close. The tears came without warning. Silent, overwhelming tears of a woman who had prepared to die and found herself still breathing. In the doorway, Steele stood watching. He was not sure if he should enter, not sure if he belonged in this moment. Sarah lifted her head. She saw him standing there. She did not look away. "Come in," she said. Her voice was weak, but clear. Steele stepped into the room. He stopped at the foot of her bed, hands at his sides, unsure what to do with them. "Thank you." Sarah's voice cracked on the words. "I do not know how to thank you for what you did." Steele shook his head slowly. "You do not have to thank me. You saved my daughter. You saved me." Sarah looked at Emma, then back at Steele. "You saved everything that matters." Steele reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. He showed her the screen, the list of donations, the names and amounts, hundreds of entries from people she would never meet. "It was not just us," he said. "Mechanics, teachers, nurses, people who heard about a mother fighting alone and decided she should not have to fight anymore." Sarah stared at the screen. Her hand trembled as she scrolled through the list. "I thought I was alone," she whispered. "I thought no one cared." "You were never alone. You just could not see us yet." Over the following days, Ridgerest began to change. The news of Holt's arrest spread through the town like wildfire. First came denial. People who had trusted him, who had invited him to barbecues, struggled to accept what he had done. Then came anger at Holt, at the system that protected him, at themselves for not seeing the signs that had been there all along. Finally came action. Families who had lost children to Holt's operation began coming forward. Mothers who had been told they were crazy, fathers who had been threatened into silence. One by one, they added their voices to the investigation. The case expanded beyond anything anyone expected. State police took over. Federal agencies got involved. The network Holt had built over 2 decades began to crumble, one name at a time. The Iron Wolves became unexpected heroes in Ridgerest. Local news covered the story. National outlets picked it up. Reporters wanted interviews. Cameras followed them through town. The bikers refused most of it. They did not want fame. They did not want attention. They wanted something simpler. Steele visited Sarah every day until she was strong enough to leave the hospital. He brought coloring books for Emma, homemade soup from Betty's diner, updates on the case that grew stronger with each passing day. On the morning Sarah was discharged, she sat in a wheelchair by the window. Emma on her lap watching Steele help Judge load her few belongings into a borrowed car. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said when Steele returned. He nodded. "Why did you do all this? For a stranger? For someone you did not know?" Steele was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his wallet and pulled out a worn photograph. A young girl, dark hair, bright eyes, 14 years old forever. "My daughter," he said. "Lily. I lost her a long time ago. Nothing I did could bring her back." Sarah looked at the photograph, at the face of a child she would never meet. "I cannot save her," Steele said, "but I can make sure other fathers do not lose theirs. I can make sure other daughters come home." Sarah reached out and took his hand. Her grip was weak but certain. "Emma has been asking about you," she said. "The man with the motorcycle. She wants to know if you will come back." Steele looked at the little girl in Sarah's lap. Emma was watching him with wide, serious eyes. "Would you consider staying in her life?" Sarah asked. "Not as a savior, just as a friend. As the kind of person Emma should know exists in the world." 6 months had passed since the highway. 6 months since the suitcase. 6 months since everything changed. Sarah stood at the window of her small apartment, watching Emma play in the courtyard below. The little girl was chasing a butterfly, her laughter rising up through the open window like music. The apartment was 40 miles from Ridgerest, far enough for a fresh start, close enough to keep the connections that had saved them both. Sarah worked part-time at a clinic now, the job Dr. Park had arranged. Her heart was still fragile. She tired easily. She took medication every morning and every night, but her heart beat. That was enough. Emma was 3 years old. She talked constantly. She laughed easily. She did not remember the suitcase or the highway or the days when her mother was missing. Children are resilient that way. They grow toward light. Deputy Raymond Holt had been convicted 2 months ago. Multiple counts of trafficking, fraud, corruption. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings Sarah made, the storage unit full of stolen lives, the testimony of mothers who finally found the courage to speak. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. The network he had built over 20 years was dismantled piece by piece. 14 children were reunited with their biological families. Others were still being traced. The investigation continued, reaching into counties and states that had never suspected anything was wrong. Sheriff Greer had retired voluntarily. He stood before the town council and accepted responsibility for the failures that allowed Holt to operate for so long. He did not make excuses. He did not blame others. He simply said he should have seen what was happening. And he did not. His replacement was younger, more vigilant, determined to rebuild the trust that had been broken. The Iron Wolves continued their charity rides, but something had changed. They added a new component to their work. They partnered with schools and community centers to teach families about warning signs, about predatory behavior, about how to recognize when someone was using authority to hurt instead of protect. They distributed information about safe reporting channels. They visited classrooms and spoke to children about what a safe adult looks like. They used their visibility, their leather, and their noise to protect children in ways that went beyond any single rescue. Steele remained in contact with Sarah and Emma. He visited monthly, sometimes more often. He had watched Emma take her first wobbly steps after leaving the hospital. He had been there when she blew out the candles on her 3rd birthday cake. He had helped her write her name for the first time, guiding her small hand across the paper. He was not trying to replace anyone. He was not trying to be a father. He was simply present. Sometimes that was the most powerful thing a person could be. The story of the suitcase on the highway had spread far beyond Montana. Podcasts told it. News segments featured it. Community meetings used it as an example of what ordinary people could do when they refused to look away. Each retelling changed small details. The number of bikers, the color of the suitcase, the exact words spoken, but the core remained the same. A group of men who looked dangerous found a child who needed help. They followed the trail. They uncovered a predator. They saved a family. They did not ask permission. They did not wait for someone else. They saw something wrong and they acted. People often judge bikers by their appearance. The leather, the noise, the reputation written by strangers who have never spoken to them. But appearance is a costume. Reputation is a story told by people who do not know the truth. The truth is simpler. Some people help and some people do not. The decision has nothing to do with what you wear. Steele stood beside his motorcycle in Sarah's parking lot. The sun was setting behind the mountains. The sky was painted orange and pink. Emma ran toward him across the courtyard, her arms outstretched. He caught her and lifted her up. She laughed and wrapped her arms around his neck. "You came back," she said. "I always come back." Sarah watched from the doorway. Her hand rested over her heart. The scar from her surgery was hidden beneath her shirt, but she felt it every day, a reminder that she was still here, that she had been given more time. Steele set Emma down and looked at Sarah. No words were needed. They had said everything that mattered months ago. He climbed onto his motorcycle. The engine rumbled to life. Behind him, stretched across the road, his brothers waited in formation. Judge, Doc, Wrench, the others who had been there from the beginning. Somewhere ahead, there was another town, another family, another child who might need help. He did not know their names yet. He did not know their story, but when he found them, he would not look away. The motorcycles pulled away, engines echoing across the empty road. Emma waved until they disappeared over the horizon. Sarah pulled her daughter close and held her tight. The world was full of danger, full of people who would hurt the innocent, full of systems that failed and authorities that looked the other way. But it was also full of people who chose differently, people who stopped when others drove past, people who asked questions when others stayed silent, people who believed that protecting a child was worth any risk. The story of the suitcase was over, but the work continued every day in every town. Every time someone paid attention to a child who seemed afraid, Every time someone asked if a mother needed help, every time someone refused to assume that someone else would handle it. Courage is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet and persistent. It shows up. It pays attention. It does not look away. And sometimes it rides a Harley,